Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Viafania. And this is the Pool Chasers Podcast. All right, so now we're going to be talking about algae and, you guys' green to clean process, which is, very important. We talked about phosphates before, and maybe you could just run through that a little bit and, hypothetically, you get a green pool out of having these high phosphates and different things like that. What does the process look like after that?
Great scenario. So let's say that you go pick up a new customer and they say, we just moved in the house, has a new pool. And you go back to take a first look after you agree to do to become their provider of service, and the pool's green. So we know there's phosphates. That's a given because the pool is green. So what we need to do is kill that bloom, remove the phosphates, and then obviously move on to a maintenance program. Now let's talk about that whole process though of killing and then getting to a stage where we're ready. There's several products out there and technologies out there that are designed and made for algae killing or ridding a pool of algae. And there's some really good ones. I mean, you can use just chlorine, enough levels of it if your cyanuric acid is not too high and the pH is in the right spot. You can definitely get really effective results with a quality form of chlorine with a high concentrated yield. You can also use a polyquat algaecide. I'm not a huge fan of those. They've been around forever. But basically what they do is they weaken the outer membrane of existing algae to the point where hopefully it's weak enough to where chlorine can get in and kill it much more easily. But on its own, it really doesn't kill algae. It weakens it. And if your chlorine isn't really in an effective kill condition, if the cyanuric acid level is too high, like in a saltwater pool, and by too high, I mean like over 30, it really starts to really slow down that kill process of chlorine. And or if your pH is high and your chlorine isn't as effective of a killer, algaecides, just kind of traditional polyquats, just kind of can be hindered to the point where they don't work very well. And you, as a pool professional, you want to be able to throw something in there and know, hey, next time I come here, this algae is going to be dead, and then I can clean it up. So what we kind of recommend as our program is either using one of two things. We've got a really effective, high concentrated, a multi-chelated copper algaecide, and I really like copper to kill an algae bloom, especially black algae. There's been more and more research done where black algae is actually, they're determining and recategorizing it as a cyanobacteria because it's more complex and advanced and more likely to survive topical treatments than green chlorella, green algae, or pleurochloris, which is mustard algae. So those are kind of like the little guys in the prison yard, but the big bad guy is the blue-green or the black algae, which is a cyanobacteria. So it's tougher. But the thing I like about copper to kill is across the board, it kills. It kills really well. It works by basically piercing the outer membrane of the algae spore and then scrambling basically the innards of it. So it's like it's stabbing it and then slicing it up on the inside. So it works. It works really well. Now, with any copper product, you get what you pay for. If you buy a very inexpensive one, the reason it's inexpensive is because it hasn't had additional chelating and sequestering agents put in it. So it's very likely to stain, especially if it's overdosed and the water chemistry isn't right. So know what you're doing when you're dealing with copper, when you're trying to kill an algae bloom. Now, there's a new way to do it. It's not necessarily new to the industry, but there's a better way to do it when you understand how to do it, even than copper, and copper is really good. But the green to clean yellow out products are outstanding, especially in saltwater pools, because of really two things. They're not dependent and they work around cyanuric acid. It doesn't matter what the cyanuric acid level is. And what they do is they basically offer a boost or create a hybrid form of chlorine when added. And that particular form of chlorine is not affected by the cyanuric. So it's a workaround for high cyanuric, but it's also not dependent on a low pH. It actually likes a higher pH. So for a saltwater pool, I always recommend going with yellow out and green to clean. We get this question all the time. What's the difference between yellow out and green to clean? Nothing. It's the exact same product. It was a marketing thing. Some areas of the country just refer to mustard algae or just algae as yellow algae. Some areas just refer to it as green, so hence the name.
Yeah.
That's the only difference. So
nice.
Yeah,
really?
Whichever one you guys get is the one that's perfect for you.
Really?
But how it works is you add X amount of yellow out or greeny clean to a swimming pool, and you add X amount of shock. And usually it's the same ratio. So for a bigger pool, you'd add like 4 pounds of yellow out greeny clean, and you'd wait a minute or two and add 4 pounds of chlorine, of calcium hypochlorite or sodium hypochlorite. And you get this amazing reaction that occurs. And this is all documented online. Like you can go just enter green to clean cleanup or green to clean algae, and you'll find YouTube videos where you'll see me actually applying this product to one of the greenest pools I've ever seen. And instantly upon adding the products, you will see this like chemical explosion occur in the water, which is what it's supposed to do. And essentially what it's doing is the green to clean or yellow out product is fusing or combining with the chlorine that was just added, and it's making a specific type of combined chlorine. Now, don't freak out, because combined chlorine, albeit in the big picture, is not a good thing for a swimming pool necessarily, but in this case, it's the best thing, because all that algae that's in there thinks that this is something that's edible. It confuses it with like a phosphate or a nitrate type thing and thinks it can eat it. So this big kind of cloud explosion you see in the swimming pool basically fools the algae. It thinks it can eat it, and then it just is literally burned from the inside out, because combined chlorine is actually still a very effective form of sanitizer, right? It is when it's in a controlled state. So what we're doing is basically creating like a shock and awe type of environment for the algae, and we're putting what looks like the most delicious bacon cheeseburger in front of it that I could ever imagine, and it has to take a bite of it, but it's poison. So it's kind of like a Trojan horse type thing, like, oh, try this, trust me, you're going to love it. And then they take a bite of it, and then it's like, oh no, what have I done? And it fries. So that's the whole name of the product, green to clean, because you add this process, and basically within 12 to 24 hours, you'll see the difference. And the video example that we walked through and did to demonstrate the steps of doing this process, as well as the results, are just amazing. Like in 48 hours, we went from the greenest pool in the world. I did not brush it. I did not vacuum it. Like 38,000 gallon, 20 by 40, almost identical to the pool that I grew up with, ironically, vinyl lined in Kansas City. But we've got this killer drone footage where you see the kind of the steps of this product working, and you see it going from this swamp green to cloudy, and then it keeps cleaning up and it goes to sparkling clear. So it's
with no brushing, no nothing.
No brushing, no nothing.
Wow.
Really?
And it just keeps basically burning up the organic material that's left behind. Now, as part of the process, because of the combined chlorine that's created to initially get that kill, you do want to repeat the chlorine addition usually 2 times about every 24 hours. So you add the initial dose of chlorine and yellow out and green to clean. You wait 12 to 24 hours. You add the same amount of chlorine. And then usually you have to do it a 3rd time. And that's simply to get rid of the combined chlorine that's created. But that's it. And again, if you see the video, don't trust me. Don't believe me when I tell you this. See it for your own eyes. So you'll see the stages too of the cleanup process, but it's really, really amazing how well this stuff works. So in a nutshell, if you've got a green pool, if it's a non-saltwater pool, I do like to use a quality copper algaecide. If it's a saltwater pool, we're making the assumption that the pH is not going to be ideal and that the cyanuric acid level is high, which just means that the best, fastest, most productive way to rid that pool of algae, to get it to a state where the algae bloom is dead and then you can treat for phosphates, is going to be by using the yellow out or green to clean. And we actually did a contest last year where we gave away $5,000 for service professionals to submit their best before and after experience with yellow out or green to clean.
What?
And yeah.
You say $5,000?
And a California guy won it. Yeah. A California guy won it. It's online.
Oh, my goodness.
And the yellow out green to clean challenge, or perfect pool challenge, I think it was called. I'm not sure.
Are you bringing this challenge back?
Yes. Good news. So everybody out there that's listening right now, we are going to do this again. So all you have to do is do before, during, and after, either pictures or videos submitted to a website that we have dedicated just for this contest. And then we take the best examples of it. It doesn't have to be quality. You don't have to be a filmmaker to do this. It's just the best example of this stuff working. And we're going to do the same, at least the same amount of money again.
Dude, that's pretty
amazing pool cleanup contest.
That would be it.
That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
What did I have to do? I thought
the amazing pool cleanup contest.
Yeah.
And you can check out the results of last year's out there, and it is amazing. It really is. So this stuff's been around forever, but it's funny because just nobody really knows how it works, which is a great challenge to have or a great problem to have as far as a company's concerned, because this stuff just does work. It really does.
Yeah.
Plus, the other cool thing about it, if you look at the videos of it online, it's like everybody's a little bit of a mad scientist in this industry. And when you see a pretty impressive kind of quote unquote explosion occur in the water, don't take it, nothing's going to splash out. You're not going to hurt yourself, but you see what looks like a 50-pound Alka-Seltzer tablet equivalent of a fizzing reaction occur in the water. It's pretty cool to see. It's compatible with all surfaces. You can use it safely in basically any swimming pool out there that's where chlorine is okay to use in it.
So, I mean, every pool guy or pool gal has their own, green to clean process, right? What do you think as a professional, that is the kind of one of the better ways to approach green to clean processes? How much chlorine, you use with the green out or green to clean?
It's, so much of it's testing and knowing the environment you're throwing it into. Yeah. I mean, if your pH is at 8 and your cyanuric's at 70 or 80 or 90, which is so common nowadays.
Or 300 in Arizona.
Or that. So chlorine just doesn't work. Chlorine is not working in that environment. I mean, like the kill times of chlorine when the CYA is over like 75, what should take like 30 seconds takes like 15 minutes. And you don't get that contact in that environment for that long. So chlorine just doesn't work. So chlorine's kind of off the table if your pH isn't in line and your cyanuric acid isn't in line. Polyquat algaecide. What would you do
in that? Maybe kind of drop the pH first, or
drop the pH first. That's going to help it significantly.
Use higher content of. Well, you're going to need
a lot more
content with much more chlorine with the high CYA.
Yeah, and if you look, and it's nothing that I could really plug because it's just out there, but you'll find the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, which basically determines the standards for recreational water, but they have charts out there that show you their tested, confirmed kill times of stuff when cyanuric acid levels here, it takes this long, and it's this upsweeping chart that gets to like 25 minutes when your CYA level is high. So, it's just knowing what you're dealing with out there. So, chlorine is a really, really effective way to kill algae if the pH is in line and with the cyanuric is in line. So, unfortunately, that's just not the case with a lot of saltwater pools, so it's kind of, off the charts. Now, if it's John Q. homeowner, they typically will go to a big box store or a lot of retailers, and they walk in, they say, I got algae, and they get handed a polyquat algaecide, which, again, it weakens the algae, and in the right conditions, it does a pretty good job of weakening it to the point where effective levels of chlorine will kill it. But there's another study out there that was done that shows a direct hindrance on polyquat algaecides, which aren't my favorite in the first place, just because they're dependent on chlorine anyway. So why wouldn't you just use chlorine, if it's workable? They found that polyquats have a reaction with calcium hardness once it's over a certain level. And essentially, if your hardness is over 450, 500, polyquats just don't work. They're really, really affected because they're basically the things that drive them, that make them have this reaction with the algae, are interfered with, and they just lose a lot of their oomph, and they just don't work in water that's hard. So remember that too. So if your pH is off, your cyanuric level is high, and you've got high calcium, so chlorine and basically polyquat are off the table, for all effective purposes. So again, that's why I really like copper in a non-saltwater pool. And then if it's a saltwater pool that has that issue, let's make the assumption the pH is high. Let's make the assumption the cyanuric acid level is higher than it should be. And, you can use the green to clean or the yellow out.
Cool. Thank you, Chris. After you made this comment, I could not stop thinking about
bacon cheese
algae being in prison. Like, I just kept thinking about them like lifting weights and like
the yard.
Yeah. And the green and clean is like the person you get an early release or something, and it's just, I just kept thinking, I was like, dude, that'd be the most hilarious video. Like this algae, like this is green algae. He's just a little guy in the prison yard.
So somewhere out there, we do have some algae animations that are not quite that ridiculous, but they're borderline. So
Little homies. Remember Little Homies back in the day?
I had a bunch of little homies.
Little homies, man.
The little figures you could buy in the dispenser machine. I still have some.
Yeah.
Haven't you heard of Little Algae?
Little Algae from the Western
exactly.
show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do we have any idea why he's called Little Algae? Because he's a pirate and he's not green. Wouldn't you think it'd be like, some swamp crocodile looking thing? Little Algae?
You would think, but
I think
maybe
it's a version of like Yosemite Sam, but
that's
I
what
don't
it looks
know,
like. Yeah, little algae.
Little algae.
That's the for those
He's
that don't
clearly
know,
a pirate.
that's the formal mascot for the Western show. They have a kind of a Yosemite Sam looking guy named Little Lil Algae.
He raps on the side. Yeah.
It's algae's still a tricky thing, man. It's really is. But again, we advocate just knowledge and set yourself up for success, know what you're dealing with. There's no right way to do every pool. There's a few wrong ways to do a lot of pools though. So that's the problem, is that people like, oh, I put in a polyquat algaecide and it didn't do anything. It's like, well, your chlorine that actually does the killing is ineffective and your water's hard. So it's not going to, but nobody knows that still. So it's all educating and awareness, and also being able to identify the algae. Like, I'm shocked. And it's one of the things in my classes, I show a lot of examples of like, troubleshoot it properly. If there's so many people that confuse green water with green algae, and one of the biggest examples is the Olympics in Rio, the Maria Link Aquatic Center.
That was crazy.
That was an algae. Everybody in the world, the billions of people who see that, saw a green dive pool, and they think it's algae. But if you look at the pictures, those dive pools are like 14 meters deep. You can clearly see the tile lines in the bottom, right? So any algae that would make a pool that green would have so many hundreds of billions, not millions, billions of living spores that there'd be no way you could see 2 feet in that water, let alone 15 meters. So what really happened, by the way, with that whole thing we discovered after the fact, but nobody knows this, is that they were using a liquid bleach system, the contractor was, and they said that they wanted to superchlorinate or oxidize the water right before the opening ceremonies to make it give it a little pop, make it look as good as they can. So the subcontractor, though, actually got the wrong stuff and added like 85 liters of hydrogen peroxide. So it's the old no of adding chlorine to a Baquasil pool. What they did is they added hydrogen peroxide to a chlorine pool, and it turned that ridiculous color that it did. But everybody on the planet thinks that was algae, and it wasn't algae at all.
Yeah.
Look at that swamp.
Yeah, that was crazy. Man, all those swimmers were swimming and diving in it.
I know.
Speaking of green pools, it's so crazy seeing like all these, because people that don't have anything to do with pools, and even in movies, they're always showing like pools being green. But they're kind of clear. Like, I don't know if you've seen the movie Rushmore with Bill Murray. Yeah. It's a Wes Anderson flick.
I love biggest Wes Anderson fan in the world right now.
Oh, really?
I love Wes Anderson.
You look like
movies.
a character maybe that could be in one of those movies.
Thank you. I think.
That's a compliment. I love Wes Anderson movies. But,
so good. So is my kid. He's 9. He watches them all, honestly.
Really?
Dude,
yeah.
Cool. If I was a kid, I would love that. Even Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But Bill Murray, he's like, he's got the Budweiser shorts, and then he jumps into I think I posted it one time.
Yeah, you did.
And like, he's underwater, and they show him underwater, and the pool's like, you can see when he's throwing the balls inside the pool that it's green. And then gets underneath it, and you can see through it.
So that's what I cover in a lot of the classes too, is like learn the difference between green from metals or green from a chemical reaction as opposed to green from an algae, and I show all kinds of examples of misdiagnosed pools that people have said, oh, here's my pool, and we've tried to help them, and it's not even the right issue, So that's part of it. Know what you're walking into and what you're up against. To your point, if anybody has not watched Caddyshack in a while, watch the scene where they have 15 minutes that's of the pool that's open to the caddies, like in the middle of the movie. The water
that is one of my favorite scenes ever.
And look, the water's copper green. Google it right now. Caddyshack pool. It is green from copper, which is very typical back then. They had copper plumbing. They also weren't paying attention to water chemistry as much as we're aware now. So heating element strip, but usually it was from copper fittings or a feed line or something, a fill line into that pool. But if you look, that entire sequence of that 5-minute scene, the water is completely green from copper. And it just makes me giggle every time.
Is it Bill Murray at the end of that scene too?
Yeah. I don't know if he was in the pool though.
Yeah, because he finds the chocolate bar.
Oh yeah, the Baby Ruth.
He finds the Baby Ruth at the bottom of the pool. They thought it was.
Oh yeah,
that's exactly right.
Yep.
So Google search, Caddyshack 1, not 2, one of the worst movies ever. Caddyshack 1 pool, and it is green.
That's funny. Well, I think we covered all of that. Thank you so much, Chris. We really appreciate doing this little educational series.
Hey, thank you guys so much. This has been a blast. And if anybody has any questions or anything at all, you can email me kind of indirectly at questions@naturalchemistry.com.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We know that your time is valuable and we appreciate you spending that with us. Also, if you guys missed episode 30, we discussed how we are now doing Pool Chasers full time. We're super excited for it, guys. It's a very big step as husbands and as fathers, but we truly believe in the message. We 100% believe in the Pool Chasers community. So we launched our Patreon page. So if the podcast has brought you any value at all, please consider donating financially. Every little bit helps. We're very committed to bringing you guys the best content possible. This will help us go out and get that content for you. So if you believe in the podcast as much as we do and you want to sign up to be a patron, go to patreon.com/poolchasers. That's patreon.com/poolchasers. This would mean the world to us, guys. We truly appreciate your time and your ear. We will not take it for granted. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, please email us at poolchasers.info@gmail.com. Please take the time to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you have not checked out the Facebook group yet, please do so. It's awesome in there. Also, if you could take a little bit of time to go to Apple Podcasts and rate us and review us, that would really help us out there. So thank you guys so much for the support. We appreciate all of you so much.
See you out there, Pool Chasers.